Hi, welcome to Family Law Friday, presented by Florida Women's Law Group. My name is Betsy Corbett. I'm in the marketing team and I'll be your host for today. Family Law Friday is designed to be a resource for all women with a family law issue. Today we will be discussing COVID and how it will affect your holiday plans. Before we get started, I want to give you some information about our host, Heather Quick. Heather is the founder and owner of Florida Women's Law Group that advocates for women in North Florida. The firm educates and empowers women on the law so that they can find the strength to endure the process and end up better financially and emotionally. She's been a licensed Florida attorney for the last 20 years, with most of her practice being in family law. Please join me in welcoming Heather Quick to Family Law Friday.
Thank you so much, Betsy, and welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in today and looking forward to talking today about something that, if it's on, it's probably on a lot of your minds. It's certainly something that as we approach the holidays with our, what we've been going through this year in 2020, it is something I think that's on everyone's mind and worth talking about, which is one, the impact of COVID-19 and how that is going to impact our holidays. So I think that's in general something a lot of us probably are thinking about. Depends on, of course, what area of the country you're living in, and it may not be as much of a consideration here in Florida, but it is to the extent that, one, we have still, government regulations, and there are concerns, and certainly if you're traveling, it's a question of, well, what is required of you in another state, and then going there and then coming back, and then what should you do coming back to Florida, and then of course what is the best thing to do, all right, for you and your family. So those are, I think, are generally concerns that I'm hearing across the board from so many people. But when we then narrow it down and look at family law issues and families that are going through a divorce or post-divorce and children, and now we have another concern. And I will tell you, just having done this for so many years, the holidays bring a lot of emotion. They bring a lot of stress, good and bad. And just there's family, which brings in a whole lot of other dynamics, and the holidays, which bring back memories, both good and bad. And so therefore, it can be a lot on our plate. Add in that the COVID-19 and what do we do, what's best, is it just adds it on. So today I wanted to talk about some things that we've been seeing in regards to family law and time sharing over the holidays, as and how we deal with that in regards to COVID-19. What's the best thing to do? How do we know what choices to make? And just some topics for discussion. So one of the big things, and my parents were divorced when I was little, and so my brother and I, became quite experts at traveling over the holidays, especially when my father moved out of state. So we were pros on the plane, and back then flying was a different thing. I won't even tell you how many years ago that was, and there was a lot of anxiety, stress, because planning and knowing you're not going to be there on Christmas Day, or if you're leaving the next day, from the perspective of us living with our mom. And there was a lot, and travel was never easy when it was on the airlines. And that was back when they were regulated, way back then in the 80s. And it was, I just feel like we spent hours in the airport waiting for the plane or whatever. And so that is not necessarily the situation we're in now, but so I understand traveling during the holidays, because that's what we always did. We, would have to go at Christmas time. So as we approach the Christmas holiday, in school getting out, and that's a whole nother thing. We'll kind of weave that in there. But as all of you who are post-divorce, and those of you who are in the middle of it are figuring out, much of the majority of the time sharing schedules and parenting plans that you see, because the base ones that we do are based around the school calendar, which typically revolves around our traditional Christian holidays and government days off and things like that. So depending, and it really depends on what county you are because it's so different, or private school versus public. But either way, there's going to be a day that, hey, this is the last day before the break. We're going to have our winter break, holiday break, and I think it's, between 2.5 to 3 weeks, right around 2.5 for most people. So what if it's longer this year? And that depends on your particular school, because I know that there are more cases and there are more issues where more exposure, and what do we do? So maybe some children are getting off a little bit earlier, but your work isn't ending any earlier. And that's an issue, and that's a big issue. And I know we don't talk enough about it, and I don't know that we have enough solutions for it, but the impact of COVID-19 on the work life of single parents and trying to coordinate with their ex as far as who gets to work, who has to be with the kids is a lot. There's just so much there to deal with. And it requires a lot of cooperation and communication. And, for those individuals who are able to do it, it's wonderful, because it is a time, unprecedented time, with things that we're having to deal with that we hadn't in the past. And hopefully it's allowed everybody just to do what we got to do to get through. But, here we are, the holidays. Some businesses, some jobs, it's a busy time. Even in COVID, I know if you're in sales, a lot of times, you gotta bust it at the end of the year. Certainly if you're in retail, there's just so much where you've got to work above and beyond and more than normal. So you may be in a situation looking to your spouse, like, listen, kids have less school, so there's more of a break. We gotta maybe adjust this somehow. That's one issue. Here we are, in the beginning of December. If you anticipate any issue, any disagreement, something that you don't think you guys can resolve, you've got to reach out to your attorney now, because there's limited time and depending on what we can do. But at least advice based on your parenting plan, your situation, on what can be done and what is the best thing to do. So that's an issue. Now, I think a bigger, broader issue that has not as many answers is, okay, we'll start with it being your Christmas. It's, hey, I've got the second half of Christmas, meaning they're coming over on Christmas Day and I'm gonna have them until they go back to school. We're going on a trip. I bought plane tickets. Plane tickets are pretty cheap right now. And we're going on a trip, maybe go visit family. Now, the question is, your spouse may have concerns, or you're worried about concerns that, what are the ramifications of traveling when we add in, the COVID-19, and is that going to hurt me in court? Let's say if you're in the middle of it, or just with your ex, and, what are they going to say? There's not an easy answer to that, because I think when you go to the CDC and you look at, what best practices are, there's a lot. There's like, if you're traveling, what do you do? So they're not saying at this point, like, don't travel. I think, it's trying to gauge the importance of it. And I think that's on an individual basis. But hey, if you're going to see family and you haven't seen family in 9 months because of this, I think that's very important for everybody's mental health. You just need to be smart. You need to understand, are you and your child at risk? Or is somebody that they're going to see when they return at a higher risk? Okay, what can we do to be reasonable, but also fall within the guidelines of, minimizing any exposure or spread? So with that does depend on your, individual circumstances. I have been in airports, not a lot, but I've been on a couple flights. There's a lot of precautions being taken. I will say that. I think compared to maybe some other areas you may go to, you're in a pretty good spot. And the airlines I think, are doing a great job. So I think, wearing your mask, the social distancing, and really, following that, especially while you're traveling. And then if you're in a new area, and especially if you're going outside of Florida, it depends on the state you're going to. There's far more requirements. I know many states are quite strict about wearing a mask outside, which is not the situation we are in here in Jacksonville, Florida, Northeast Florida, as far as that being, anybody enforcing that. So it may be that if you're traveling somewhere and that government in and of itself is a little more strict, more stringent on those types of things, that could be good if you're wanting to travel. You can get a test before you go, and you can get one when you get back. I've had one. My kids have. They're pretty readily accessible. I think the costs vary and the accuracy, of course, varies, but I would do your research on that if you're wanting to travel, because again, it's all about, hey, I'm being really reasonable, and I'm also considering the impact on not only my family, but on my child's father, their situation, and being mindful of that. And the reason I say that is because I look at everything from the standpoint of, we're in a courtroom and you're being questioned, and the judge is, and of course, with hindsight, which I get it, you're in the moment making decisions, but I know how this stuff plays out. And that's why I'm saying, give us a call, talk to your attorney, get some solid advice, because what you don't want to be is irresponsible and cavalier about what is going on currently, because that's going to really just reflect badly on you if you end up in a courtroom in a month from now. It may not affect you. You may still do what you want to do over the holidays, but it just, it will make it worse for you down the road, frankly. So that's why I suggest these certain things, so that you're putting yourself in the best position possible, as well as your child and the health of your family. Now, so that's the issue if you're going. And I'm sure I could go into so many more things, and there would be other questions that individuals would ask that I can answer. Whatever. That. But now you're concerned because he's going to put them on a plane, they're going to go ski. And you just aren't comfortable, or you have genuine concerns about exposure to COVID, one, getting sick, and then two, bringing anything back, and how that affects everybody, because, they get back and then they're sick, and then, one, got to make sure they are in good health, what is their risk level, and then two, how does that impact them going back to school when you need them to go back to school so you can work? Those are some realistic and valid concerns that everybody would have. I think you have to check with the school. I have no idea. I have 3 children in St. Johns County schools. They may have sent something, but I haven't seen anything where there's any kind of requirement if you travel that you have to quarantine or do anything like that after the holiday. But that could change. One, I could have missed it, and two, it's early December. I think that's valid, and you need to know if there's going to be anything like that, because you and your ex need to talk about it. If they're going to fly and get back and go to school 2 days later, and the school's like, no, if they've been on an airplane, you have to quarantine or have a negative COVID, you need to know. You need to find out what is going to be, what you need to have in place, or what you need to be prepared for. And I think the COVID test may be something that's going to be required. I think you should consider that either before the child goes, because you don't want to, maybe they're exposed, they're going somewhere, and then they're going to be sick and they're not going to be home, or when they return. When you follow and look at the CDC, it's not really a screening mechanism. Usually it has to do with symptoms, but the school may require it if they're to return without a quarantine. So I gather the information so you know the facts as to what their school will require. I would also look at and try to understand and get the communication as far as where do they want to travel? What's the situation going on that state? Where are they going to stay? What are their activities? Things of that nature, because that's going to be really important in understanding and trying to communicate, is this the right thing to do? Because there is a difference between, hey, we're going to go visit family we haven't seen in a long time versus we want to go skiing. And hey, I'm not knocking going skiing. I'm just saying, in the grand scheme of things, you need to have a conversation and know where they're going. Or they're going, to I don't know that anybody's really going to the Caribbean, but they're going someplace, further South Florida that has its own issues as well, because maybe they have more cases. But regardless, understand where they're going, for how long, and what the situation is going to be, because that can give you more information to assess what is your comfort level and what are your concerns. Do you think that your child is at risk, and how does that play out? Got to talk to their pediatrician. Get some advice from a medical person that can weigh in on what they suggest. Usually I would say they will venture on saying don't go. But if that's what you're wanting, then why don't you go find that out? So those are some thoughts and ideas to talk about, because it's going to start happening. And I would, if you're going to ask your spouse what they're going to do, I would follow up in an email and a text, have it in writing what they say. And if you have concerns, one, hopefully you guys can have a conversation about it. A lot of times that's not possible, or it can start out good and then it goes badly. So start that process in a conversation, but as you've heard me say before, follow it up in a text or an email, so that what you believe you heard him say is in fact what he said, or gives him a chance to maybe change his mind. But I know sometimes I say something, I think it's really clear, ABC, person on the other side heard XYZ. So, that is helpful. And again, it also provides evidence later if this is a matter that is going to have to go in front of a judge at some point. So again, one of the things the courts are always looking at is how well parents communicate, how well, you're able to communicate with your ex-spouse and then with you. A lot of times it's really difficult. It's always best to take the high road, put your best foot forward, and attempt. Try. Maybe you'll get a different result. I get it. You're used to, having the same result, but you've got to try and then see how that plays out. But, as we enter this holiday season, I totally understand how you feel. There's a lot on your plate. It's been a difficult year for so many people, because we've been faced with a lot of challenges that maybe, we've never experienced. And, depending on your support system and stress levels and everything, it can be hard. And it's been hard on so many people, and how you cope and how you adjust. So, understand that we know it's been difficult, and also understand that I'm hoping for everybody has a great holiday season. I think for a lot of us, we're like, oh my gosh, you can't believe it's finally here. It seems like such a long year, ready to start a new year. But then we're thinking, these kids have been out of school for so much. Like, you really got to give them that much, off school? I don't know. Because it's a balance in what to do with them. And, the younger they are, it can be a lot more challenging. And so know that we're here for you. At Florida Women's Law Group, we help women just like you, and we deal with these issues a lot. And particularly as we enter the holiday season, they just seem to maybe be a little bit more magnified because of what we talked about in the beginning, just the emotions, the stress, the holidays, the memories. So we understand that. And if you are anticipating some trouble or experiencing it already, reach out sooner rather than later. And hopefully we can really help you navigate this winter break and the holiday season with the children, the time sharing, and factoring in, COVID-19 and how that's impacting everybody. And, especially as we try to take trips, travel, and visit family. So thank you so much for watching. We are here for you. Please, reach out to us at the number below if you have any questions or want to schedule a consult. Or if you know somebody who you're like, man, I know they are going through this and these are issues they're going to have, love for you to forward the video so that they can maybe get some information. And just if they take a couple of these tips, it might just help. So thank you so much. And Betsy will give you more information on how to reach out to us.
Thank you, Heather, and to everyone that was able to watch today. We are here for you, whether it's a question about COVID and the holidays or any other legal question that you may have. You can call us at 904-241-0012. Thank you and have a wonderful holiday.